from Buckingham Palace. Today, His Majesty the King initiated formal proceedings to strip Prince Harry of his titles, honors, and distinctions. On a fog-heavy Tuesday morning in late October, royal security quietly arrived at Frogmore Cottage, the former UK residence of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. With solemn precision, 2 guards in full Windsor insignia changed the electronic locks, installed motion detectors, and sealed the entrance with an iron clasp engraved with the Crown's cipher. The message was clear: access denied, effective immediately. What followed was a series of cascading actions, swift, deliberate, and absolute. Within 48 hours, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were formally stripped of all remaining royal privileges: titles, financial allowances, housing arrangements, travel security, even the symbolic use of monograms bearing the crown. Every trace of institutional affiliation was revoked under a private decree signed by King Charles III. The man who once walked behind his mother's coffin under the world's watchful gaze was now, in every official capacity, no longer a working royal. And this time, there would be no second review, no soft compromise. The decision was final. But what stunned insiders and outsiders alike wasn't just the brutal clarity of the action, it was who delivered it. Wearing a navy coat dress and a single diamond brooch, once owned by Queen Elizabeth II, Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped before the cameras outside Windsor Castle the morning after the locks were changed. She did not smile. She did not waver. Flanked by 2 royal aides and speaking with the full authority of the Crown, she issued a carefully prepared statement. The monarchy stands not only on legacy but on accountability. It is our duty to protect its values, its trust, and most importantly, its children. For months, royal watchers had speculated that Charles might delay, perhaps even reverse, action against his youngest son. But behind palace walls, the situation had deteriorated far past diplomacy. According to sources, the king issued the final command known internally as Order 17A, after a confidential report from royal auditors revealed that private Sussex expenditures, drawn from shared sovereign assets, had exceeded agreed-upon limits by over £1.2 million. That report was placed directly into Catherine's hands. Within hours of the order, a specialist transition team, known as the Royal Asset Custody Group, was dispatched to Frogmore to oversee the physical retrieval of royal property. This included not just paintings, antiques, and protected heirlooms, but also classified communication devices, secure briefing folders, and multiple digital archives related to prior royal engagements. Every item purchased or maintained with royal funds was catalogued and removed. Meghan's designer furnishings, personal journals, and clothing were placed into sealed containers and escorted off the premises under the watch of royal guards. According to one insider, even the children's cribs gifted by the Queen in 2019 were taken into storage, pending custody clarification. The Crown was not just closing a door, it was erasing an era. At the center of this storm was Catherine, stepping into a role no other royal woman had dared to embody since the late Queen herself, executor of consequence. And she did so without theatrics, but with a firmness that sent a clear message: this was not about personal grudges, this was about royal discipline. For 2 days, there was nothing but silence from California. But then, on the evening of the second day, a private letter addressed to King Charles leaked to the Times. Verified by 2 independent sources, the handwritten note from Prince Harry described the eviction as a calculated humiliation designed to strip us not only of title, but of dignity. He added, "If Catherine is the future face of this family, let the world remember she was also the hand that closed the gates." But royal aides were quick to counter. In a rare off-record briefing, a senior palace official responded, "The Princess of Wales did not create the conditions for this decision. She carried out her duty when others would not." That phrase, "when others would not," now echoes across headlines and Twitter threads alike, viewed by many as a thinly veiled swipe at both Charles and William for previously delaying action for the sake of family peace. The sharpest point of controversy now surrounds the children Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana. According to sources familiar with the Order 17A implementation, Prince William has begun proceedings to secure limited guardianship rights over both children should Meghan and Harry permanently sever their ties with the Crown. One royal aide described it as a preemptive move to preserve lineage clarity. Essential plans to Fordet. And while no legal filing has been made public, the mere suggestion of such an action has sent shockwaves through the global press, with fierce debate over whether it amounts to monarchical overreach or necessary protection for royal-blooded minors. Notably, Catherine has not commented directly on the matter, but her team confirmed she has met privately with child welfare consultants, former royal nannies, and even clergy advisors to discuss ethical guardianship scenarios. 18. The press calls her actions steely. Insiders call them heartbreaking. Behind closed doors, insiders say Charles and his senior advisors are now enforcing a doctrine they call the Windsor Reset, a new policy architecture meant to align royal symbolism with legal clarity, moral responsibility, and fiscal transparency. At its heart lies a sobering realization. Royal privilege cannot exist without royal responsibility. By placing Catherine at the helm of its first major purge, the monarchy may be making more than a political statement. It may be creating a new archetype. A queen, not of pity, nor performance, but of enforcement. As one palace aide summarized, Diana won hearts. Camilla survived the press, but Catherine may be the one who keeps the monarchy standing. And so, as trucks rolled away from Frogmore under gray English skies, one era ended not with a scandal, but with a signature, and a woman in navy blue ensuring it was carried through to the very last door. For someone known for mastering the art of public appearance, Meghan Markle chose a curious response in the days following the final Windsor decree: total silence and total absence. While cameras stalked the gates of Frogmore and press helicopters circled over Windsor's shadowed countryside, Meghan was nowhere to be found. Not in Montecito, not in London, not even on social media. It was as though the woman once dubbed the most photographed royal bride in history had vanished into smoke. According to two palace sources, Catherine had extended a private invitation to Meghan for a final meeting on royal grounds, a chance to clarify issues surrounding the children, to discuss what personal belongings might be allowed to remain in Frogmore, and perhaps most crucially, to end things with dignity. Meghan did not respond. Instead, her team reportedly sent back a 12-line legal notice through a California-based attorney stating that any in-person conversation outside of representation would be considered non-binding, informal, and potentially prejudicial. It was a cold reply to a warm gesture, and for many insiders, the final confirmation that Meghan had no intention of reconciling on British terms. One royal aide close to Catherine remarked off-record, "She, Catherine, did not reach out as an enemy. She reached out as a mother. The rejection was personal." As the Sussex family ghosted the palace moved forward methodically and with the precision of a military maneuver. Frogmore Cottage, the former wedding gift from Queen Elizabeth II to Harry and Meghan, was officially reclassified as a restricted Crown property facility. Over the course of 3 days, moving teams under armed security removed 11 crates of belongings. Each crate was documented with a Windsor Seal inspection checklist. Among the items removed, a collection of designer chairs and light fixtures, originally reimbursed under sovereign grant funding, portraits of the late Queen and Prince Philip, gifted to Harry but legally held under temporary royal endowment terms, jewelry pieces, including a Cartier bracelet once rumored to have belonged to Princess Diana, now under review due to unclear documentation. One senior household staffer who had worked at Frogmore in 2020 revealed, "It was eerie. The walls still had family photos, the children's toys were in the corner, but the soul of the house it left long ago." The cribs, as previously reported, were removed and placed into Kensington Palace archives, pending a decision about royal custody rights. All communications infrastructure, including secure telephone lines and classified USB drives, were collected and encrypted. By Thursday morning, Frogmore stood empty, its windows shuttered, its pathlights dimmed. While Meghan remained unseen, Harry's frustration spilled onto paper. His now confirmed letter to the king accused the family of publicly humiliating me like a disobedient schoolboy and turning my birthright into a ledger. But notably, his words were not addressed to his brother. William, now Prince of Wales and heir apparent, maintained strict silence for 3 full days. Then, in a carefully scheduled royal event in Manchester, he delivered a short but telling remark. "Legacy isn't what we're born into, it's what we protect, especially for those who can't yet speak for themselves." To royal analysts, the subtext was clear: a defense of Archie and Lilibet, and a rebuke of how their parents had handled their exit from royal life. Palace officials confirm William has privately urged the Crown to take steps, ensuring the 2 children retain some right to protection under the monarchy, regardless of what their parents may choose. He's argued, according to insiders, that the sins of departure should not be inherited. But the legal challenge remains difficult. Unlike Beatrice and Eugenie, who were adults when Prince Andrew was removed from duties, Archie and Lilibet are minors. They are currently under the sole legal guardianship of Harry and Meghan, who reside outside UK jurisdiction. Still, one senior royal legal advisor told The Telegraph, "Custody, in royal terms, is not the same as parental authority. There are historical precedents for the Crown asserting an interest in protecting royal heirs even against a parent's will. The very fact this is now being openly discussed is proof enough that the family rupture is no longer private, it is institutional." Amid the fallout, a name re-emerged: Sarah Ferguson. Insiders close to Fergie have long whispered that she warned Charles in early 2023 that Meghan's royal ambitions would crack under pressure. Now, as Meghan's absence deepens and custody questions mount, Ferguson's old warning has taken on renewed weight. She said Meghan would flee when the glamour faded, a source claimed. And it's starting to look like she was right. Makesing decided. In the shadow of headlines detailing asset seizures and sealed gates, a quieter but more consequential effort was unfolding behind the scenes, led not by Charles or William, but by the Princess of Wales herself. Catherine, often described by insiders as the steady hand in royal storms, activated a constitutional clause not invoked since the late 1982, a rarely mentioned framework referred to in palace circles as Protocol 34C. This protocol, embedded in the sovereign's guardianship prerogative, outlines royal procedure in cases where minor descendants of the crown may be placed in unstable or reputationally damaging domestic environments abroad. Its existence had long been a historical footnote until now. Two sources close to the Lord Chamberlain's office confirmed that Catherine personally requested a private audience with the Archbishop of Canterbury, held discreetly at Lambeth Palace 2 days after the Frogmore evacuation. The subject: spiritual and emotional guardianship of Archie and Lilibet. Though the palace refused to comment officially, several details were leaked to the Times. Catherine reportedly shared correspondence documenting educational neglect and erratic travel patterns affecting the children's welfare. The meeting included child development experts from the Royal Trust's advisory board, signaling that this was not just a symbolic inquiry. She raised serious concerns about the environment of spectacle, litigation, and emotional volatility surrounding Harry and Meghan's household in Montecito. Later that week, Catherine held a second meeting at Kensington Palace, this time with legal counsel and representatives from the Privy Council. Insiders say the meeting's goal was to establish whether the Crown retains a viable claim to act on behalf of Archie and Lilibet as royal-born minors, should evidence arise that their guardianship is compromising their long-term well-being or constitutional standing. In a move that stunned even longtime royal analysts, Catherine authorized the transmission of a classified letter to a select committee in the House of Lords, under the advice of the Queen's Counsel. The letter, while not public, reportedly included a timeline of incidents showing the Sussex children's lack of visibility in royal records, redacted portions of family correspondence where Meghan allegedly resisted contact between the children and royal relatives, a request for the Lords to review succession frameworks for minors raised entirely outside the realm, with no engagement with royal tradition or education. This may mark the first time in modern history a Princess of Wales has independently engaged a parliamentary body on a child welfare matter. It's not about custody in the traditional sense, a senior Crown official explained. It's about ensuring the monarchy's next generation, whether they wear crowns or not, is not erased from its own heritage. As Catherine's quiet offensive unfolded, murmurs from California grew louder. Sources inside Netflix's documentary division revealed that Meghan had approached producers with an outline for a follow-up to Harry and Meghan, this time focused on parenting outside the Crown. But the pitch, according to one insider, was less motherhood, more vendetta. Executives were reportedly concerned the tone was overly reactive, especially in light of recent footage showing Meghan avoiding contact with Catherine during their last UK visit. One segment from the original pitch, since leaked, described the royal family as a cold institution that never cared if our children existed. This assertion, made just as Catherine was arranging meetings for the children's benefit, was seen by many as deeply cynical and conveniently timed. What's notable is not how loud Meghan's messaging has become, but how silent Catherine remains. Instead of press conferences or statements, her strategy has been entirely operational and institutional. Behind the walls of Lambeth, Clarence House, and Parliament, a web of influence is being built not to attack, but to protect. One commentator described it this way: Catherine isn't fighting for a title, she's safeguarding an inheritance of dignity and two small children who had no say in any of this. At first, King Charles said nothing, not when Harry's private letter full of anger arrived at Clarence House. Not when the palace accountants finalized the termination of all royal stipends for the Sussexes. Not even when tabloids splashed the words "humiliated like a child" across the front page, quoting Harry's own outburst over the monitored expense fund. But inside his private study at Birkhall, aides described Charles as noticeably altered. He paced more. He reread old correspondence. And one morning, he requested that the Windsor Archive Office retrieve a sealed envelope marked only with the initials QEII, private. The envelope, archived under Queen Elizabeth II's personal effects and never released to any royal secretary, was dated March 2021, the week following Meghan and Harry's now infamous Oprah interview. Its contents, handwritten in full, expressed grave concern over the decoupling of duty from self-image and warned of the monarchy's future being distorted through grievance rather than shaped through grace. In a chilling line, the late Queen wrote, "If Catherine ever finds herself surrounded by noise and insult, know this: she has my full trust to steady the crown. Her silence is not absent, it is a choice." When King Charles finished reading, sources say he wept. The next morning, he gave a single instruction to his most senior aide: no more delays, let her lead. While London moved with quiet gravity, Meghan misstepped badly. During an exclusive pre-recorded segment for a women's leadership summit in Los Angeles, she offered what was clearly a veiled jab at Catherine. Some of us are expected to endure, to smile, to bow, and then to vanish once the headlines pass. But real strength isn't ornamental, it's disruptive. Because, end quote, her audience responded with polite applause. But by the next day, headlines turned. A whistleblower from the event staff leaked that Meghan had vetoed seating arrangements to avoid proximity to a British diplomatic guest, reportedly calling them part of the old system that failed me. The British consulate, already briefed on her revoked titles, issued a formal complaint to the event organizers. One Whitehall insider commented, "There's a difference between independence and insolence." Meghan crossed it in front of a room full of cameras. That same week, Catherine made a rare solo visit to a children's hospice in Oxfordshire. She brought no press team, no staged visuals, only 2 royal protection officers and a worn notebook filled with notes from previous visits. One observer, a nurse who had known her since 2017, recalled, "She looked serious but warm. There was no stiffness. She knelt down, took time with each child, and when one asked where her princess dress was, she laughed and said, 'I left it in the laundry today.'" By evening, social media had flooded with photos unscripted, unfiltered, and heartfelt. While Meghan's team attempted to reframe her summit remarks, the contrast was devastating. One tweet went viral. One duchess is still writing speeches. The other is still writing bedtime stories. That's the difference. It is Asians 2022. According to a YouGov flash poll, public support for Catherine as the monarchy's future leader rose by 18% within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Meghan's approval in the UK dipped below 19%, a historic low. Even in the US, a segment of the media began openly questioning whether the Sussex narrative had overreached, especially when it began attacking the one royal who had remained largely silent and dignified through years of provocations. One American morning show anchor summed it up with a sharp remark: "You can only cry wolf so many times. Eventually, people start asking why the wolf keeps showing up at your door." Behind the palace gates, the tone had changed. What had begun as a symbolic revocation of royal privilege was now evolving into something far more personal, emotional, and legally uncharted. The 2 names at the heart of this escalation were no longer Charles or Catherine, but Archie and Lilibet. Unknown to most, deep within the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, and bolstered by legal precedent set during the reign of George III, the reigning monarch retains partial sovereign rights over the custody and guardianship of royal children, particularly those in the direct line or born into the House of Windsor. And while Harry and Meghan had publicly stepped away from royal duties, their children's place within the family tree had not been fully severed, at least, not yet. That was the legal thread Catherine's team quietly began to pull. Working alongside constitutional advisors and 2 former Supreme Court justices, Catherine initiated what royal aides called the Emergency Clarity Clause, a legal framework to protect the rights of royal-born minors caught in transatlantic conflict, ensure access to British citizenship, education rights, and ancestral holdings, and, if necessary, petition for temporary or partial guardianship by the Crown should the environment of upbringing prove damaging. The move was preemptive, not aggressive, but it rattled Meghan's legal team. An insider close to the Duchess confirmed. The second Catherine invoked that clause, the Sussex lawyers froze. Because it wasn't personal, it was legal, and the Crown was within its rights. On March 2nd, under the strictest confidentiality, Prince William sent a personal communication to his brother through their joint legal intermediaries. Its tone was calm but unwavering. Your status as a father is not being questioned. Your ability to shield your children from chaos is. The message outlined 4 core demands. Immediate cessation of any media productions referencing their royal titles or family history. Full inventory disclosure of all royal-linked assets and memorabilia held in the U.S. Meghan's public clarification that Archie and Lilibet's identity is not bound to celebrity royalty. It is May W's agreement to a neutral custody reassessment every 5 years, involving child welfare experts from both countries. Harry's response was explosive. In a hand-scrawled note, later verified by palace insiders, he wrote, "You're trying to raise my children like they're crown property. You've lost the plot." But it was Meghan's counteroffer that shook everyone. Instead of rejecting the proposal outright, Meghan's team floated a different scenario, one that insiders say was as strategic as it was unsettling. Her lawyers suggested launching a joint UK-US Children's Foundation, framed around co-parenting across continents, to rebrand their fractured relationship with the monarchy into one of modern resilience. The catch? She demanded 0 references to past conflicts. She insisted Catherine be excluded from all children-related initiatives, and she pushed for a reunion photo with Charles, Harry, Meghan, and the children staged in a private garden, but leaked to the press later. Catherine's response? A quiet 2-word reply, sent through her private secretary. Absolutely not. As the royal legal teams debated morality, media control, and custody law, Sarah Ferguson Fergie re-emerged as a voice in the shadows. Sources close to the former Duchess of York revealed she had privately told multiple staff, "I warned them. Meghan's love is transactional. Harry's going to find out the hard way." It was Fergie who, months earlier, had provided the Crown with key documentation surrounding Meghan's media alliances, many of which had been used to manipulate public opinion against Catherine, particularly during the early Sussex pregnancy narratives. Now, as custody talks loomed, Fergie's words echoed louder in the halls of Windsor. And Charles? He remained absent from the public stage, issuing no official comment, but instructing his advisors to allocate £150,000 in a secured trust for Archie and Lilibet, to be administered directly by Catherine's legal counsel. On March 10th, Catherine paid a quiet, unannounced visit to Lambrook School, the educational institution being considered for Archie, if ever repatriated to the UK. She brought no cameras. She spent 40 minutes with faculty. And when one child reportedly asked if a new boy named Archie would be joining, Catherine smiled softly and replied, "If he does, we'll make sure he has the best welcome of all." The message was clear. The door is open, but the standards will not bend. At exactly 9 a.m., on April 3rd, 2026, 3 black Range Rovers quietly exited the private security gates of Frogmore Cottage, flanked by 2 white moving vans bearing royal seals, faint, almost invisible, unless one was looking for them. By mid-afternoon, the Windsor residence that once represented the Sussexes' last physical tie to royal privilege was cleared. What remained behind was not just furniture or family relics. What remained was a severed era. At 5:01 p.m. London time, Buckingham Palace released an unusually long statement. 12 full paragraphs, signed directly by King Charles III and co-signed by the Prince and Princess of Wales. The message was unequivocal. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are no longer in possession of any formal titles, privileges, housing rights, or sovereign-funded assets within the jurisdiction of the Crown. A one-time transitional allowance has been allocated to support relocation, not exceeding £500,000. It's not a grace. An annual support grant of £150,000 may be provided for basic child needs, subject to governance oversight, annual reviews, and in accordance with Crown-verified expenditures. All memorabilia, cultural items, and security personnel linked to the royal household must be returned or decommissioned by April 14. It ended with a stark final sentence. This decision is binding, irreversible, and effective immediately. For Harry, this was more than exile. It was a reclassification of identity. 3 hours after the statement, a private letter, scrawled hastily by Harry, was leaked either by design or desperation to a freelance journalist in London. In it, he wrote, "To be stripped like this Me, a veteran, a son, a father reduced to being monitored like a teenage rebel who can't manage money. This is not who I am. It's humiliating. I am not Andrew. But inside the palace, the comparison to Prince Andrew had already solidified. As one senior advisor told The Times, Andrew was the cautionary tale. Harry is now the institutional precedent. The difference? Catherine is watching this one directly. Back in Montecito, Meghan reportedly refused to sign the final clause acknowledging the unconditional surrender of royal positioning. Her reasoning? I never asked for these titles. You gave them to us because it suited your story. Thanks for watching. Yet, in the days following the severance, new PR filings revealed she had signed a separate content deal with a major platform, one that specifically prohibited references to royal narratives, palace mistreatment, or Windsor commentary for 36 months. In short, she had monetized her silence. Insiders close to her claimed this was her final act of independence. Critics saw it differently. She didn't bow out. She sold the story and closed the door behind her. Well, and what of Archie and Lilibet? While the royal statement mentioned their names only once in reference to the oversight clause, their future remains murky. They retain dual citizenship, but with no royal security. They are barred from using prince and princess titles unless reactivated by a future monarch. Catherine has ordered that their heritage records be preserved and sealed in the royal archives, accessible only upon their 18th birthdays. It was a move both symbolic and legal, not erasing them but freezing their future. The night before the public announcement, on April 2nd, Catherine hosted a closed-door meeting at Clarence House, attended by Prince William, Lady Louise Windsor, Princess Anne, Queen Camilla, under supervision, and the King's most senior constitutional advisor. There were no cameras, no press briefings, no aides present. What was discussed, no one outside the room fully knows. But one detail emerged. At the end of the meeting, King Charles reportedly turned to Catherine and said, "You've done what I could not. You've held the line." Her only reply? For the crown, not for comfort. On April 5th, Catherine appeared on the steps of St. George's Chapel, alone, holding the hand of a young schoolgirl visiting Windsor with her class. She was not giving a press conference. She was not issuing a speech. But every front page carried the same photograph. Catherine in white, eyes forward, standing between past scandal and future clarity. One headline from the Telegraph read, "Where Meghan exited, Catherine endured." For the British monarchy, the removal of the Sussexes isn't just a subtraction, it's a codification of new standards. No one, regardless of birth, is untouchable. Titles are not symbols, they are contracts, and the crown will not be guilt-tripped, gaslit, or ghosted into silence again. In private, Charles is said to be weary but proud. Anne, resolute as ever. But it is Catherine who now carries the burden of legacy not in crown or costume, but in the quiet enforcement of consequence. The House of Windsor has been hurt, but it has not been broken. Not under her watch.